meeting of the Planning Commission. Welcome to the Planning Commission. Today's date is June 28th, 2023. The Planning Commission consists of residents from East Salt Lake City District that are appointed in a manner providing balanced geographic, professional, neighborhood, and community interest representation. The Planning Commission reviews and acts on any changes to the city's general plans, small area plans, special studies, zoning ordinances, zoning district map. Commission also reviews and acts on planned unit developments, conditional uses, and certain subdivisions. Our goal is to provide a welcoming and safe environment for everyone. We ask that those in attendance adhere to a few ground rules: silence or turn off cell phones, respect the person speaking, and do not interrupt or do other things that could intimidate or deter others from exercising their right to be heard. Clapping, jeering, shouting, or other actions used to discourage people who have different opinions from participating will not be tolerated. People who attempt to diminish someone else's input may be removed from the room. If you wish to speak, come to the microphone once the public hearing has been opened and state your name. Members of the public will have 2 minutes to comment. Your time cannot be combined with someone else's time. Everyone will get the same amount of time to speak so that we can ensure that everyone is treated equally. If you are a representative of an officially registered or recognized organization and the item you wish to speak on is within the boundaries of your organization, you'll be given 5 minutes. It is outside of your boundaries, you will be given 2 minutes. If you have a handout that you want the commission to see, you need to leave copies because they become part of the legal record. When commenting, speak clearly, keep your comments on topic and brief. Questions asked during a public hearing will not be answered during the public hearing. Rather, the commission may ask that the applicant or staff to answer questions after the public hearing is closed, or ask city staff to follow up with you at a later time. The opening statement. So we'll move on to the business. The chair has no report. Vice Chair?
The Vice Chair has nothing to report.
The Director?
Just wanted to mention a couple things. We still have not received the decision from the appeals hearing officer on the come and go conditional use, but we do expect that soon, so we'll make sure to inform everyone once we get that. And then I just want to remind you all that you have received the link to the Plan Edison training. You need 4 hours a year, and Aubrey sent those details to you about reporting back, and make sure to reach out to Aubrey if you have any additional questions.
Okay. We'll move on to approval of the last meeting's minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Gent and a second from Commissioner Burrows. Commissioner Christensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee is not here. Neither is Levi. Commissioner Scheer? Commissioner Burrows?
Yes.
Commissioner Gent?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Abstain, I wasn't present.
Commissioner Tuttle?
Yes.
Commissioner Gale?
Yes.
And the chair will also vote yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yeses and 1 abstention. The motion passes. So this is our open forum time. So we have a few minutes if anybody has any issues that they want to bring up among the commissioners.
I just wanted to ask a question of staff. Since we're moving to that training on Plan Medicine or whatever it's called, are we then not going to have the opportunity for some of the questions that we pose to get like additional briefings? Is that going to stop? We have a whole backlog of ones we know we've asked for, and we haven't had those come forward yet. So I just wanted to know if that's still an option.
I don't think that that's going to be in place of any trainings that you all have asked for. I think we'll still be doing those. I think this was just an extra option for you to get the required training hours. Can you think of any specifically in terms of the trainings that you've asked for that haven't been provided, just so I can make sure
Yeah,
that we
I
get
asked
to those?
for not so much training as like educational briefings, so to speak, but they could be considered trainings because we're learning something. I'd asked a while ago about water usage in relationship to the last APA conference that was down in Lehigh. The Jordan Water Conservancy Director had been presenting about how they calculate water usage and recharging and recapture, those types of things. And so I wanted to understand more about how Salt Lake City goes about that, because that was playing into the question of water usage and what type of developments actually require more water, whether it's single family or apartments. And then I know that Commissioner De Oliveira had a question that still hadn't come up, but he wanted to get more information on the city's ordinance and practice of enforcing like overnight street camping, like RVs and stuff like that along the street. And those are the two that pop into my head right this point. But maybe
Okay.
commissioners have some other ones.
Anyone else have anything they want to bring up? Okay. We'll move into the regular agenda. The first item on the agenda this evening is the Silos Design Review and Plan Development, approximately 568 South, 400 West. PLN PCM 2023-0018 and Plan Development PLN PCM 2023-0019. Welcome, Katie Lynn.
Guinea pig, I guess. Can you hear me okay if I'm this far away? Okay, cool. All right, so this is the Silos Design Review and Development. Just to give you some context, because this is a large project. This is for the block founded by 500 South, 600 South, so 500 West, 500 West. There are 3 phases to this project so far. We are considering phase 1 tonight. The other 2 are just providing context so you know what the overall vision of it is. On this map, the blue part is phase 1, which is what we're considering tonight. Green and yellow are phase 2 and 3. They consist of a low-income housing building and also a park, a potential hotel, additional facilities, and more retail. So phase 1 consists of kind of 4 different parts. There's the offsite parking, which is provided through the adaptive reuse of the Miller Building, which is this warehouse. They're adapted to a area. And also they're going to reuse an existing concrete slab behind the Miller Building for offsite parking that's going to provide parking for both buildings 1 and 2 of this phase of the project, and then also some of the future phases. The Casket Building is an existing 3-story or 2-story.
Excuse me, but I cannot really hear you. I'm trying, but yeah, you might have to.
How's
bring that-
this?
So much better.
I
Sorry
feel
to
like
interrupt.
a movie star now.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. So the Casket Building is a 2-story brick building that is also a contributing structure of the Warehouse National Historic District. They are proposing to preserve and do an adaptive reuse into retail and commercial space. The two buildings that are under consideration for design review and plan development are buildings 1 and 2 identified on this map. Building 1 is a mixed-use building that is going to be fronting onto the future park, and building 2 is a multifamily building. So building 1, again, that's that middle building that's in the middle of the block off the park. It has 65 residential units and ground floor commercial space with an outdoor dining and patio area that transitions into the park. There's no on-site parking for this building. It's all the parking is provided through that off-site parking area. Building 2 is a multifamily building. It consists of 221 units ranging from studio to 2 bedrooms. The ground floor uses are residential units, but also an amenity space, some leasing offices, and a parking garage, a one-level parking garage that will provide some of the parking for that use, and the rest of it will be provided in that off-site parking area. The other element of this project that's under consideration is the mid-block walkways. The downtown master plan identifies 2 mid-block walkways on this block, one that runs north and south connecting 600 South and 500 South, and then running east and west connecting 400 West and 500 West. For the sake of this project, the areas of the mid-block walkways identified in the solid orange line are the ones that are going to be developed as part of this project. The ones that are the dotted lines are going to be developed as part of future projects, but they will be recorded as part of this project to make sure that they're done in the future. So the requests, there are a number of requests associated with this project. Both buildings are requesting additional building height exceeding 60 feet, which is what triggered the design review. And then they are also requesting a lot in building without public street frontage for building 1, and building 2 is requesting a reduced setback along 600 South and a street facade without a building entrance on that 600 South. And then also on 400 West, there are some balconies and awnings that project into the required setback. Staff is recommending approval with some conditions. So to give more details on the requested modifications, Building 1 is in the middle of the block, therefore it does not have any public street frontage, but that does not mean it doesn't have public access. It is accessed by the 2 mid-block walkways. It's located at the intersection of those 2, and is also going to be fronting onto that public park that they're providing in the future, and is designed to activate that space. They are requesting 83 feet of building height, which is above the 60-foot maximum for the CG zone. As part of that request, they are required to provide additional landscaping, which is being provided between the building and the park to kind of provide a transition area there. Building 2, their 600 South facade has 2 requests associated with it. One is a reduced setback. That is intended to match the setbacks of the existing Miller and Casket building on that block and to provide that defined street edge that's called for in the downtown master plan. Also, they're requesting to have no building entrance along this facade, and the reasonings for that is because of its proximity to the 600 South off-ramp, which is about a block away. And that area just isn't hospitable for pedestrians, so they made the determination to orient those pedestrian elements towards 400 West and the mid-block walkway, which are more pedestrian in scale and orientation. That doesn't mean they eliminated all considerations for pedestrians. There are windows, large windows on the ground floor. There's an interesting facade design that breaks up the facade into 7 distinct sections. The next request is for the 400 West facade to have some projections into that right-of-way. Those are the balconies on the upper floor and the awnings on the ground floor. Those are elements of good pedestrian-oriented design. And so staff is of the opinion those are appropriate given the pedestrian-oriented desire of this area. This building is also requesting additional building heights. They're requesting 85 feet. They will also be required to provide additional landscaping, which is provided through the mid-block walkways and in other open space areas on the property. The planned development objectives, this project meets 5 out of the 6, namely historic preservation, housing, mobility, sustainability, and master plan implementation. Further details of that are found in the staff report.
It also meets the 3 design review standards along with all of the design elements that are required as part of that review. The increased height shall result in improved site layout and amenities. Additional landscaping is required, and the additional height is limited to 30 feet. As mentioned previously, staff is recommending approval because the project generally meets the applicable standards with the following conditions. Prior to the permits being issued for construction, the applicant shall record a development agreement that establishes those 2 mid-block walkways. And then also final approval, of details for lighting, hardscaping, pedestrian elements in the mid-block walkways, and screening for ground-mounted utility boxes to be delegated to planning staff to verify compliance with the associated standards. And with that, I'll turn the time over to the applicant.
Is your applicant here?
Yes.
Come on up. And do you have a presentation?
We do. Oop.
I think you need to come sit at the table. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Keith Smith. 1536 East Mill Creek Way is my address. 84106. Anyway, excited to be here. We have been engaged in designing this project for a while, and extremely excited to be here tonight. And really thank Katie Lynn for helping us out on this. What I'm going to do is turn the time over to our architect, Peter Berger, with MVE Architects, and he has a presentation that he's going to share with you.
Thank you, Keith. Good to be in front of you guys tonight. Thank you for the time. Peter Berger with MVM Partners. I'm a principal at the firm and really guiding the design for this project. So as Keith mentioned, this is something that is extremely exciting. We're absolutely thrilled about, but the goal of our presentation is to really continue the conversation that Katie Lynn started and really talk about the overall vision of the block. And as mentioned, it's a big site. There's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of pieces, I should say. And so we want to make sure the commission has a clear understanding. The concept of the overall block is really all about celebrating the silos. We have these incredible structures that have been a part of the Salt Lake skyline for nearly a century. And this project is all about creating really meaningful open space that brings the users and the public up to these impressive structures. So to kind of read directly from some of the text, but celebrating industrial history with modern design, providing a framework for mixed-use development, distinct character and identity. One of the things to contemplate here is this is the same team, ownership and design, that is bringing you the Post District that is nearly completed. We could not be more proud of that project, not only from the aesthetics, but also the various user groups that are already starting to take the spaces. The curated notion of the retail and certain components like that are exactly what the vision was from day one. And then really the other piece about Post District is creating these really meaningful public gathering spaces. And so we're trying to really create the silos as an extension of what the Post District has already started to create. And then again, celebrating the silos being the main focal concept. The site itself holds a variety of mixed-use industrial buildings, most notably the Hustler Flour Mill and silos that you're kind of seeing just on the screen to the right there. And those will be a series of those silos that will be maintained, and again, will make up kind of the focal point of Silo Park. There's been maintaining the structures, worth saving and purposely integrating new construction has really driven the site planning efforts. And again, this big goal that Post District really is going to create this incredible urban, really hardscape plaza per se at the core of it. And the idea is that Silos really offers a similar type of gathering space, but it really is in this central park space. It's really a softer landscape area, something that we really don't think the district and the greater part of this part of town has to offer. So it's a really unique offering. So just some different guiding directives, distributed and shared amenities, creating a multi-level, multi-layer, multi-use environment. And that comes to the various mixtures of uses and commercial and residential plays that will hit the ground plane, in addition to the variety of podium deck and rooftop deck access points and experiences that you can create three-dimensionally. Like I mentioned at Post District, but really creating a curated retail experience, one-of-one users that really create this very unique environment. And then, as Katie Lynn mentioned, the through block connections, the mid-block walkways that are required of us in the property. The goal here, similar to Post, is really going above and beyond. We're not just meeting the minimums of what those standards are. It's about attaching you to, again, a meaningful public park and open space, and then various uses such as residential spilling out to these uses and commercial uses spilling out to these uses. And then, as mentioned kind of previously, but this central park space that we think is really going to be unique. As mentioned, I know you guys know the site, but just to give some proximity, we are one step closer to the west when it comes off of our entrance and exits to the I-15, but really, again, directly west from Post District. We want to make sure that adjacency was pointed out. But again, it really becomes this first impression into the city. So we put together some quick illustrators in addition to some of the more technical drawings that Katie Lynn reviewed. But we're really talking about B1, 2, 3, and 5. I guess I can point with my cursor, I apologize. But B1 being the mixed-use residential building, B3 being the pure residential building, both those combined into 286 dwelling units. There's a unit range of 327 square feet to 1,317 square feet. So anywhere from a micro unit offering up to a 2-bedroom offering. And then we have about 13,000 square feet, 18,000 square feet, 18,750 square feet of commercial retail. And that's just for this application that's at the table today. But this building 4, which will be coming on as a later phase, will have an additional sizable square footage, north of 30,000 square feet of commercial retail play. And then from an amenity and private outdoor space standpoint, in an elevated fashion, just over 13,500 square feet for the residents. And then interior private amenity space is just north of 13,000 square feet. As you get up into the second level and upper levels of the project, you start to see the various breakups between, we're calling them building 1 and 3. I think they were noted as building 1 and 2, but of just how the residents start to play out. We have an elevated pool experience that sits above a private drive in the silo park. Again, talking about that connectivity from these multi-leveled spaces, and then a courtyard space as well in this B3 unit, or B3 space. We have a series of renderings that were not part of our application that we want to share with you guys that just adds additional layer of kind of life and intent of what we're trying to achieve here. So just for some context, we're on the northeast corner of the property, so 500 south, 400 west. But again, for part of this application, we have the 2 multifamily buildings that occur here and here. The Miller building, as we're calling it, and the Casket building, which are the adaptive reuse pieces of the project, and then the future phase, which would be this larger building, which makes up the larger commercial play. And then other buildings that are part of the same ownership group, but not part of this application in additional phases. There's a low-income tax credit project that's happening where the cursor is here. And then there's a future hospitality offering that's going to be in a future application. And then, of course, at the heart of this, the silos. Yeah. Some pickleball too. Yes, some pickleball in that larger commercial building. So 6 pickleball courts. So when it comes to the architecture, this was all about creating an extension again of Post. Post House was all about being this first impression, creating specifically with our one really unique building with the big roof forms, really this lasting impression. So Silo Park being that extension, the architecture is all about grit, texture, authenticity, and repetitive forms. One of the unique characteristics of the silos is you have these fantastically large, monumental, repetitive notions in that building that you're just not going to go build today. And so what our goal is how do we celebrate that? In addition to create, varying patterns of architecture that, again, start to become an extension of Post and start to create this overall district feel of the type of buildings that we're trying to offer to market. So varying roof lines, repetitive massing, like I mentioned, diversified but part of the same family, design responsiveness to the industrial history of the site, and then creating a lasting impression. And before we jump into the architectural sides, we do have a larger sample here, and we can either pass that. It's very heavy, but I apologize. But there's some brick that we're, from an architect standpoint, really going to geek out on. It's very, very unique. It's I can confidently say there might be 2 buildings in the world that have approached brick in this fashion. And so our thought was if we can introduce, it's essentially a frogged brick, so you're getting tons of texture and relief in the brick. It's almost, I don't even want to share it because I don't want another architect even looking at it, but it's never been done in the States, and it's really, our goal is to put it right on 600 South. It is the entrance to into the city. It starts to create a statement in not an overbearing form, but in a subtle way that just starts to say, this is something different. This is something a little special. So this is a rendering of building 1. So this is the west side of the park. Again, some of those roof forms, again, trying to create this bigger kind of play of intent with these roof forms and how these buildings meet the sky. There's an incredible mixed use play here where you're gonna have an amazing opportunity to come and have a food and beverage concept that lives right off of that open green space. This is that entrance into the city. So this is those repetitive forms that we talked about and drawing inspiration from some of the repetitive notions of the silos themselves. But this is where we'd introduce that frogged brick notion, which is, again, what you're seeing just to the right of me, which hopefully we can, in some way, fashion, get closer to you guys. But here's, again, a good sense of that arrival into the city. It is a fast-moving street at this point, so we thought some of these bigger gestures and massing elements actually played really well. And then, in addition to that, just to the left here, this would be the historic casket building that would get repurposed into most likely a food and beverage concept. But again, would be a great scale element, to blend in with some of the larger elements that we're creating in the new multifamily.
Could you just kind of wrap this up, and then we'll
Just a
we'll
few more.
pepper you with
honestly,
questions.
pretty images, and we'll go through them pretty relatively. I apologize. I'll just highlight these real quickly. But a view from the park looking south towards the building 3 multifamily. The pool deck is this elevated experience. Then we have a rooftop deck. And this is more about the placemaking of the site, but this is really the park itself. We would have the smaller commercial buildings here, which are 2 stories in height, obviously celebrating the silos, the central park space, and off to the left is our building 1 mixed-use building. And finally, this is a nighttime shot that just starts to talk about the activation. I hate using the word Instagram moment, but I'm going to say it. It's just, how do you create these moments that people start to capture and feel like, I just need to be a part of this? And we think this could be a tremendous opportunity. So thank you for your time. I apologize for going over and being lengthy.
No, just
but,
you have a lot going on there.
no, it's okay. We're here for any questions, of course.
Okay, so questions from the commission? Commissioner Berry, sorry.
Do you have a rendering of the 6 South facing? Since that's one of the questions before us, is having that area with no entrances. I'd like to see what that looks like a little better than what was. Sometimes what's in the staff report isn't necessarily what the end product is when you're bringing it here. So I'm a little disappointed that that's the best rendering, considering this is one of the questions before us, to really evaluate how well that meets kind of the intent. I'm not against not having an entrance, but I think that needs to be evaluated, that it still feels like it has some interest and not necessarily a pedestrian engagement, but it is pedestrian interesting. So I'm kind of disappointed that that's the best rendering we have. I don't feel like I can evaluate that appropriately.
Anyone else right now?
I have a question for staff. How does it happen that this part of the city doesn't have a recognized community organization?
They haven't finished their registration process yet.
It's a new group?
No,
that
they have to renew their registration every so often, and they haven't finished that process at this point. So we weren't able to notify them as a recognized organization.
What group is it?
Downtown.
Okay. I can understand there's a difference between being required to notify them or get comments from them and just doing it. You know what I mean? Was there any conversation with the downtown community council?
Not officially. We did send out the usual property notices to all property owners and residents within 300 feet of the
neighbors.
property.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just to follow up to that question, Commissioner Burrows, the zoning ordinance does indicate that it has to be a registered, recognized organization with the county, and so, or with the recorder's office, excuse me. So we didn't have that obligation to send that because they aren't currently registered.
Anyone else? Okay, you guys hang tight for a minute and we will open the public hearing on this item. If someone wishes to speak on this, you can come up to is the podium live? I assume. Anyone in the audience want to speak on this? Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing on this item, bring it back to the commission and the applicant. Do you not have maybe a better drawing of that 600 South?
Yeah, I mean, this
Well, while you bring that up, I think that the overwhelming interest here is to keep pedestrians off of a freeway exit and entryway. And, they've got these designed with a lot of interest. And I think to me, it makes sense in the interest of safety. So go ahead now that you have this up and go ahead and explain. But I just think we look at the countervailing interest, and I think that is very understandable, and I can support that 100%.
Yeah, that one that you've got up there does show it a little better than the flat one.
Yeah, obviously, there's quite a bit of movement in the massing and in the architecture three-dimensionally. Those planes are actually angling back, then angling forward, so there's a lot of movement there. And there is a series of windows. If I was better at, let's see, zoom in a little. But there are a series of windows that do turn the corner, as Katie Lynn had mentioned, that happen essentially in kind of the first two bays on each side of the elevation of glazing. And then it's really the center portion that's more solid. But yeah, that's how that's designed. With that exact intent that, look, we'd rather have users on the internal of the block and the more walkable environments than as opposed to 600 South, which really at this stage in the game is a freeway off-ramp. And we've actually had challenges at Post House, which is the light and beyond, of people actually making that turn. They're coming in so fast. There's been actually a few unfortunate accidents. But anyway, So
I'll just follow up. Again, I'm not against not having entrances. That's really not my problem. My problem is that even if we drive by this, we're going to have a wall of windows with their blinds down. That's exactly what happens with the work-live units that happen in my neighborhood. Nobody does a work-live unit, and the blinds are always down, and that's not, I don't think, the intent of what those guidelines are trying to get. In this particular design, that's what we're going to get. So let's forget about people walking if that seems to be a hang-up for people. So nobody's going to walk along this road. They're going to drive, and this is what they're going to see is a bunch of blinds covering the windows. I don't see any interest in that. I don't see how that is an inviting visual experience as you're doing a gateway into the city to drive by something like that. You can achieve some visual interest with some different shapes and whatnot along those buildings, so they're not all, or those windows, so they're not all the same. And I can get a better idea of some of the depth that you're going to create, but I'm concerned that it's just going to be a wall that people drive by and don't pay any attention to it because it's boring. And it's just not meeting the intent of what we are hoping to see in the downtown area in terms of engaging, whether it's a pedestrian or a vehicle driver.
Are those ground level units all residential units, or is that amenities? It's all residential?
sorry, correct.
Yeah, I guess I understand the concerns about it not being the most exciting block. I certainly, I'm glad there's still sidewalks. I don't think we should completely cede 600 South I think it should still be safe for pedestrians. I realize that's more of a city issue than your issue in particular. I think it's noisy, right? So it's going to be, I think my bigger concern than safety for pedestrians in terms of putting anything there, it's just noisy and it's not going to be pleasant for so pedestrians will have to use it because it is somewhere I have had to jog on that. I've had to bike on that. It just happens sometimes depending on where you're going. We still want sidewalks and places people can bike. Though it wouldn't be the first choice. But I guess in terms of the visual interest to the cars, I kind of view this as potentially adding to the costs of the project if we require this in a way that doesn't really help the people living there. And so it kind of drives up rents without really helping the people who we want to live in this project. And especially, there is a LIHTC component to this project. Is that accurate? And so I'd be especially concerned about a project that is dedicated to affordable housing imposing additional costs for the people driving off the freeway. I guess I don't have deep concerns about their lack of visual interest. They don't seem to have deep concerns. They're driving into our downtown. I don't know.
Okay, any other discussion or a motion?
I have a quick question on the development agreement piece about the mid-block way walk, the public areas. Is it anticipated, or do you have it set up that you're going to dedicate those areas to the public so that they cannot then be shut off and just considered private for the owners of the project itself? So when you do a development agreement or however you do it, you can dedicate uses to the public generally. And then if the public is beneficiaries of that, they can enforce their access rights. And I get that there's going to be retail stuff there, but we've seen in the past some areas in Salt Lake City.
I think that's one of the terms of the staff report.
Yeah, the
But
development
they were not
agreement.
specific about whether it will be dedicated to public use. I understand that in the plan development, we can say there are those areas, but I'm just asking specifically, is there language that's proposed that dedicates those areas to public use?
Yes, it's a public easement across their
So
property.
it will be an easement and not just reliant on the development agreement.
Correct.
And those paths will go all the way across the block. Those will be recorded even if they aren't built right now.
Correct.
I'm ready to make a motion unless,
Go ahead.
yeah. Based on the information presented and this discussion, I move that the commission approve the application as follows: the design review with the conditions listed in the staff report and the plan development with the conditions listed in the staff report.
I second.
Yeah, I have a motion from Commissioner Burrows and a second from Commissioner Gale. Mr. Gale.
Oh, you said Gail? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes. I heard that wrong. Yes.
Or maybe we have somebody else named Gale here. I don't know.
I heard a Mr. and then I thought it said Ghent at the end and I was like, we're getting our words all mixed up.
Okay.
It was me and I say yes.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Tuttle?
Yes.
Commissioner Barry? Commissioner Gent?
Yes.
Commissioner Burrows?
Yes.
She's not here. He's not here. He's not here. Commissioner Christensen?
Yes.
And the chair will also vote yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 positive votes and 1 negative vote. You get your plan. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our next item. The Bumper House Apartments design review and plan development at approximately 1050 South Washington Street. Design review PLN PCM 2022-01165 and plan development case number PLN PCM 2022-01166. Welcome, Michael. She said it's a little tiny button. Oh, there you
Okay,
go.
thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. This is a design review and plan development request for the property located at approximately 1050 South Washington Street. A very similar project was previously approved by the Planning Commission on October 13th, 2021. However, the approval for that project has expired, so the applicant is asking for a new approval. The design of the building is very similar to what was approved in 2021, but does include some changes, which will be covered in the presentation. The project is located on a site in the Ballpark neighborhood that is between 200 and 300 West on a dead-end street accessed via Brooklyn Avenue. The petitioner is proposing to construct a 7-story tall multifamily building. The property is located in the CG General Commercial Zoning District. In CG, when a building is proposed to be between 60 and 90 feet in height, it must be approved through the design review process. This building is proposed to be 73 feet, 10 inches in height. The applicant is also asking for relief through a plan development on 4 separate zoning standards. 3 of the requests would allow for an encroachment of some kind into a front or rear yard setback, and the 4th request is related to the required dimensions for drive aisles inside the parking garage. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the requests. The project site is located in the Central Community Neighborhood Plan area within the boundaries of the Ballpark Small Area Plan. The project would include 287 residential units in a 7-story building, a parking garage containing 135 stalls for a ratio of about 0.47 stalls per unit would be located on the first 2 levels. The units themselves would mostly be located on floors 3 through 7, with 8 of the units being located on the first 2 levels. The building lobby would be encased in glass and occupy the southeast corner of the building, opening onto the street, as well as a proposed pedestrian path that would wrap around the south and west sides of the building, which will be an amenity for residents, but also improve the way the building relates to the rail line to the west, as well as provide for the possibility of future pedestrian connections from Washington Street to 200 West. The applicant also plans to install a curb extension adjacent to the southeast corner of the building to create a small pedestrian plaza using unique pavers. Proposed building materials are cement stucco, hardy plank fiberboard, exposed concrete, and mesh coverings. The ground levels of the building would also feature large murals on the east and west facades. It should be noted that the art shown in elevation drawings and renderings is for illustrative purposes, and the applicant intends to select final artwork later. The main changes from the 2021 proposal are as follows. The building is slightly taller. Some of the projecting balconies in the first proposal have become projecting living areas with Juliet balconies, and the number of parking stalls is slightly less than before. The property is currently the site of several vacant heavy commercial or light industrial buildings. The combined acreage of the subject property is a little more than 3/4 of an acre, or 33,972 square feet. A portion of the property was once used for outdoor storage of car bumpers, which is where the name Bumper House is derived from. There is a public alley directly to the north of the property that is currently fenced off, and the applicant intends to, which the applicant intends to improve and reopen for public use. The immediate surrounding neighborhood is generally characterized by heavy commercial uses or auto-oriented businesses, but that character is rapidly changing. Directly to the north and east is a commercial laundry facility, but to the northwest, on the opposite side of the public alley, a different multifamily project has been approved. To the east on 200 West, the neighborhood transitions to a mix of single and multifamily residential uses. 300 West is characterized by large commercial properties and multifamily development. The core of the Central 9th neighborhood is located nearby to the north, although it is separated from the project site by the West Temple overpass leading to and from Interstate 15. The site is about a 1/4 mile from the 900 South and 1300 South track stations. Directly abutting the property to the west is a rail right-of-way owned by the Utah Transit Authority. UTA is studying the future use of this right-of-way, and it will likely become a part of the TRAX light rail system in the future. When reviewing this project, staff looked at the general standards in the zoning ordinance, and in particular, the standards for the CG zoning district, the plan development standards, and the standards for design review. The plan development and design review requests will be discussed in more detail in the following slides. As mentioned earlier, As mentioned earlier, the petitioner is requesting a design review for building height above 60 feet in the CG zone, as well as 4 total modifications to standards in the zoning ordinance through a plan development. The applicant is proposing a building that will be 73 feet, 10 inches in height to the top of the roof. It will also include a parapet wall that will reach to 77 feet, 4 inches, and stairwell and elevator bulkheads that will be up to 89 feet, 4 inches in height. The project meets the standards for design review by providing design elements that are beyond what is required in the CG zone. CG has very few design standards. The only standard that would apply to this project is for it to include at least one building entrance on the street-facing facade, which it does. Elements that go beyond what's required in CG include ground floor murals and projecting balconies and living areas, which make the building more visually interesting and engage the pedestrian. The proposed pedestrian path to the south and west of the building will help connect the project with the greater development potential of the surrounding neighborhood. Screened interior parking and a pedestrian plaza near the lobby also contribute to a better pedestrian experience. The additional height is mitigated by the use of durable materials as well as projecting balconies and living spaces, which will help provide eyes on the street. The projecting living spaces will also include operable openings that have Juliet balconies installed a few inches from the opening, allowing for residents to lean out and view the street or on the west side, the rail line. The balconies and living spaces will project 4 feet in the face of the building, making the balconies usable as outdoor spaces and further enhancing the eyes on the street effect. The applicant is requesting 4 total modifications to zoning requirements, 3 of which are related to setback standards. In the CG zone, a 10-foot minimum setback is required in front and rear yards. In this case, the front yard is the side facing Washington Street and the rear is the side facing the UTA right-of-way. The first and second floors will meet the required setback, but the upper floors will project into the required setback area by 4 feet with projecting balconies and living areas. This will technically require 2 separate modifications to the setback standards, one for the balcony projections and another for the living area projections. Staff is recommending approval because the intent of the zone is being upheld and preserved. Asking for a 4-foot projection allows the balconies to be usable spaces. If the projection were shorter than that, balconies would not be comfortable enough for their intended use as private outdoor areas. As mentioned already, this helps to contribute to eyes being on the street. The encroachment into the required setback area is mitigated by the fact the first and second levels maintain the required setback, as well as the ground level being fully landscaped. The third setback projection will be a canopy over the entrance to the lobby, which will wrap around the building. This will be discussed in more detail in the next slide. The final modification requested through the plan development is to the minimum dimensions required inside the parking garage. The Transportation Division identified 4 total pinch points within the garage where the drive aisles do not meet the minimum width. Transportation is recommending that the modification to allow for the drive aisles to be narrower than allowed in these points should be approved, given the challenge building a garage on a triangular shaped lot. This slide demonstrates where the lobby canopy would encroach into the front yard setback in orange. The encroachment into the setback area would be about 5 feet. The canopy would wrap around the southeast corner of the building, and where the canopy projects off the south face of the building, it would not be encroaching into any required setback, and that's shown in green. The lobby is proposed to be wrapped in glass, and the canopy helps to break up the otherwise solid mass, making it more visually interesting. Because the lobby is proposed to be double height, being open to the second level, with the second level also wrapped in glass, the canopy helps the building entrance to relate to the pedestrian scale, because it will be built closer to the ground and help to break up the appearance of the glass from the street. The encroachment into the setback is further mitigated by the pedestrian plaza and path that is proposed to be built, highlighted in orange here. The plaza would be built as a slight extension into Washington Street, providing more space for pedestrians in front of the lobby. This slide shows where balcony and living area projections would be located on the 3rd level of the building. It should be noted that each level will be slightly different, so this drawing is just an example. But each level will incorporate a mix of projecting balconies and living areas. Balconies are shown in blue in this image, while living areas with Juliet balconies are shown in orange. The proposal generally complies with the applicable master or adopted plans. It would help to transition the northern portion of the People's Freeway neighborhood to a character that is more transit-oriented, a goal that is identified in the Central Community Neighborhood Plan. It would redevelop an underutilized site and accommodate and promote an increase in the city's population on a site with proximity to open space, future and current transit lines, and heavy infrastructure, consistent with initiatives in the Growth Chapter of Plan Salt Lake. It also is of a design quality that helps provide visual interest and balance the heavier density of the project, the goal identified in the ballpark small area plan. Staff has mailed notification of the proposed project to property owners and residents within 300 feet and sent notice to the Ballpark Community Council for their review. And as of today, no comments have been received regarding this. Staff finds that the project generally meets the standards for design review and plan development and recommends that the Planning Commission approve. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take questions.
Is your applicant here? Why don't you come up to the desk and do you have a presentation or?
I do have a presentation. I'm happy to provide it or answer questions or go wherever you
Well,
want
if
me
you
to
want to
go.
do your presentation,
Sure.
You have about 10 minutes.
Yeah, good. Yeah, my name's George Hauser. I'm the project sponsor, and I'm also the architect for the project. One of the issues that we have with the site is the brownfield site. It was formerly a Salt Lake Chrome plating facility, and we've been remediating the site under the auspices of DEQ for about a year now. And we actually have a EPA loan from Salt Lake County, and so that process is ongoing. The remediation of this site is still ahead of us, but we expect to finish it later in the year. How do I move this thing forward here? Yeah, sorry. There's a little bit of a naming conflict here. We call it Chromeworks, and these guys call it Bumper House, but you know, so what? Okay. All right, so anyway, it's a transit-oriented site, at least that's how we think about it. It's halfway between 900 South and 1300 South track station. It also has this, hopefully, very important future asset in the form of the UTA right-of-way. We're hoping that at some point in time is going to be a rail line extension going up 400 South right through the project that you just saw. And that it also will be a linear park, somewhat along the lines of what's been done on the Sugar House extension. And that the projects that are built along that will take advantage of that right away. We've done what we can here in the sense of try to develop a pathway along that west facade. And also the site is currently, it has a public alley through the middle of it, not this site, but between the two sites that are part of this project, between this site and the companion project at 269 Brooklyn, which is the Bumper House project. And that alley is going to be opened up. It's a 16-foot wide alley, so that'll provide some mid-block connection. And we're also proposing to open up a pathway at the southern end of the site in hopes that, first of all, it will relieve the dead-end quality of South Washington Street now, which is, very oppressive. And we're hoping that in the future, the development of the Miss Fields property will also include a mid-block connection over to Jefferson Park. Let's see. Sorry. Yeah, okay. So this outlines those kind of public connection opportunities. The 269 Brooklyn on the north, then the public alley separating 269 from 1050, and then the connection at the south end between the dead end of South Washington and the UTA right-of-way, and then the right-of-way on the left. Okay. And, you've seen this slide, but it basically expresses this intention to landscape the west facade, create a pathway there. Hopefully at some point in time, those pathways will continue and there'll be a continuous walkway down to 1300 South Station, as an example, or going north. You could walk to the next station along the right-of-way up on 400 West. We think of this as workforce housing. There's a preponderance of studio units, about 80%, 10% one bedrooms and 10% two bedrooms. They're not exactly micro units. They're slightly larger than what I would characterize as micro units, but the intention is to provide housing for, at a lower price point. It's not a LIHTC project, but a lower price point for, people who are working in the neighborhood, maybe working in one of the big box stores, or one of the retail operations or food service operations in the neighborhood, or possibly further afield using the public transportation as their primary mode of transportation. That's why we only have one parking space for every 2 units. We've done what we can, I think, on the ground level of the building to promote a lot of landscaping. We have the landscape front yard, the setback. None of the encroachments that we're asking for encroach onto the ground level. They all start at the 3rd level. And we're providing the landscaping on the south and also on the west of the property. This is a more detailed view of the landscaping on the east side. We've mentioned it, the parklet out in front of the lobby develops. Now there's no sidewalks there. There's no curb and gutter. There's no landscaping at all. So we're adding all those elements: street lighting, benches, and a lot of plant materials and sidewalks. This is kind of a view of the south end of the property. We're having a lobby space, 2-story lobby space. And then at the upper level lobby, there's a clubhouse on both levels. We programmed some residential units on those spaces, but they may at some point in time become amenity spaces for the guests. We may decide, for the residents, we may decide to convert some of those or all of those residents to, athletic facility or facility, meeting rooms, that sort of thing, for the benefit of the tenants in the property. This is kind of an example of a clubhouse that we've done before. The resident open spaces consist of the ground level amenities, and then also we have a courtyard at the 3rd level. That's going to be a landscaped element. It won't provide any common use because it's a management issue with noise and that sort of things. But then most of the units get balconies, so they have an outdoor space associated with the unit. And then we also are proposing to develop a roof deck on the upper roof that would be elevator accessible, and it would have a deck area where people could, and possibly an outdoor kitchen where people can go and have an outdoor meal, or possibly some raised planters for gardens and that sort of thing. We're also proposing to provide public murals on both sides. These are stand-ins. These are not the final solution, but the idea is that, one of the challenges that the site presents is because there was a dry cleaning operation to the west, east of us, and that dry cleaning operation is still releasing, toxics, materials, solvents. And some of those are migrating onto our site. So we're not actually mitigating those because they're not our release. But it's important to minimize the amount of development on the ground floor because of the exposure to those vapors, basically. So, in the spirit of developing an active ground floor level, we're proposing these murals. And this is the other side, the west side, similar thing. This demonstrates The height increase we're asking for is 60 feet is the yellow line. And then these kind of lime green elements show where exactly on the building where we're projecting the living space out onto the balconies. We actually thought of this as a way of basically activating the facade more, giving it more depth, more three-dimensionality, and more vitality. Instead of just having these big balcony spaces, we wanted to use part of it as the living space. In no case did we eliminate a balcony space from a unit. We just took what was excess balcony and converted it to living space, leaving some balcony for that unit. So we didn't detract from that from our previous scheme. This is just about our attitude toward developing these smaller spaces where we spend a lot of effort into making the spaces livable, incorporating built-in elements that are more compact and enhance the livability of the space, providing additional storage, providing connectivity between different spaces by having glazed partitions and that sort of thing, so that these are more dynamic spaces. We also always try to get a very high window height so that you have that opportunity to look up when you're in the unit or down. We use sliding glass doors and tall doors so that you really feel connected to the outside. We think that's very important in terms of the quality of the space.
So would you kind of wrap that up for us?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
That was short and sweet. Thank you.
That was that.
Stay there.
Yeah.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant or for staff?
I just have one question. Several years ago, we reviewed a project right here, and I feel like this was the same parcel. Is this a different one?
No, it's the same one. Yeah.
It's the same one that we looked at 3 years ago. So
It was a year and a half ago, in 2 years October, this coming October.
yeah, time is.
Yeah, I know.
Fleeting.
Yeah. I expected to have it built by now, but
So
other things happened.
It is the same
Yeah.
parcel.
It's the same parcel. There's two parcels. There's one on the north, which was approved prior to this one, the last approval on this one, and that approval is still in effect.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify and
Sure.
jog my memory. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have questions at this time for the applicant or for staff? Okay, seeing none, I will open the public hearing on this item. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Commissioners, questions?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Based on the information presented and the discussion, I move that the commission approve these applications, both the design review request and the planned development request.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Gale and a second by Commissioner Tuttle. Commissioner Christensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrows.
Can I clarify that that includes the conditions from the staff report?
There are no conditions in the staff report. That's mistyped on our motion sheet.
Well,
Okay.
right? Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Gent,
Yes.
Commissioner Barry,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuttle,
Yes.
Commissioner Gale,
Yes.
and the chair will also vote yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yeses. You have your approval.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Thank you for listening.
Okay, we will move on to the next item on the agenda is the alley vacation at approximately 827 East Wilmington Avenue. Case number PLN PCM 2023-00225. Welcome, Diana. It's tricky, so you have to talk into it to make sure you got it.
I think it's on. The volume might have gotten turned down.
No. Oh, it doesn't sound like it.
Hello? Yes.
There we go.
Hey, good evening. Okay, now I just need a minute to bring up the presentation. Okay. So to start, I do have a presentation, however, I just wanted to start with letting you know that this is kind of a part 2 to an application that came to you February 8th of this year. This is just another portion of that alley vacation that we addressed in February. This portion is just the same. It runs west to east between 800 and 900 East within the block north of Wilmington Avenue and south of Commonwealth Avenue. The portion tonight is requesting to be vacated is 17.3 feet wide and 119 feet long, and it starts exactly at the point that the last application ended. The remainder of the alley to the east will remain open. That is not up for vacation at this point. Based on the findings and analysis in the staff report, planning staff recommends that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council. So just as a reminder, this was the first request that came to you. This is the starting point at 800 East. This is the picture on the right is the ending point of that application. Now we're looking east to west. This on the left picture where my cursor is, if you can hopefully see that, that's the fence where the last application ended. There was a fence that was blocking the alleyway. And then this right picture, it actually just a little bit more to the east would be where the ending point would be for this application. This is the remainder of that alleyway that would remain open. It does have probably 3 dwelling units that do access this point, so that's not up for consideration because they do use it. And again, staff is asking that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council.
That was short and sweet. Does your applicant have anything that he wishes to add?
He has no presentation, but he's up for questions if you have any.
Okay, questions from the commission for either staff or the applicant? Okay. We'll open the public hearing then. So the public hearing's open. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this? You're the only one. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Anyone ready for a motion or a question?
I remember when we talked about this, and I have it in my notes because my notes go back that far. So I remember this original alley vacation. Can you explain, do you understand the resident, the public comment that's in our Dropbox? Do you understand the complaint there? Can you explain it to me?
I do. So she is, or maybe she isn't so detailed, but that person that wrote that comment lives on the corner. Let me go back to this. Not to pick her out too much, but it is an applicant that lives off of Wilmington, or excuse me, a resident that lives off of Wilmington Avenue. She is saying, so the previous applicant that lives in this home here is a contractor And I think she was kind of noting that his contracting trucks or colleagues or something had been parking in front of, close to her house and blocking it. I don't see her need for using the alley because she is on Wilmington, which goes straight up to 9th East. It would be kind of weird to have to go around the corner and try to get onto the alley from this point. But I think that's what she's expressing.
But-
In regards to the sign being removed,
Yeah.
that's not a problem. It's been posted, so.
So the public alley though is for everyone's use, right? You don't have to be a neighbor that needs to get to your backyard in
Correct.
order to.
Correct.
So I remember I voted against this alley vacation because it's just making, because it just made like a dead end. Like when we vacated that other part, has that vacation happened?
So it hasn't. That first application is actually being held up with the city council in order for this one to catch up with it so that the city council can
Oh.
address both at the same time.
I hate both of them because it really did make a dead. I thought that one of our goals in alley vacation was like keeping the whole alley or vacating the whole alley, and that's not possible to do in this case because all of those other houses on the other end, on the north side,
The east side.
on the east side, they use it, right? Like they have been using it.
Some
They do
do,
use it.
right.
They've got driveways and stuff. And that first alley vacation kind of just made a dead end. And now this request is to like extend that dead end farther out, which I don't think that this meets those, the goal of vacating an entire alley or not. So I'm for sure not more in favor of
Well, and
this
just
one.
just to address that, one of the standards that we had talked about in that first application was the fact that it had been blocked for 20 years plus. And so it had not been used as a right-of-way ability. I mean, there was no passable way to get through this for 2.5 decades. So that was one of the standards that I had used in my staff report as that it had not been in use.
Mhm.
And this portion that's being added tonight is also, a portion that had not been used for many years.
Has this portion, this yellow portion are we looking at the same picture?
Yep.
The yellow portion does it have like a gate on that side?
It has that fence that's between.
Yeah.
If you can
So one
see
of them's
here.
blocked because I remember going
right
to see it and there
here.
were, trucks parked. Like that was the people's driveway. Like they just were using it as driveway. There was a lot of stuff there. And then that next yellow part is blocked off by
By this fence here. So if you can see on the right side, it's kind of hard to see, but it's down at the end of this picture.
is it like a chain link fence?
It is a wood fence. I'm sorry, I don't have a closer picture of it and I can't zoom in on that one. But it is, and it does have, so dirt was put there, so the
Oh.
grade has a change in it, right in front of that fence on the east side of the fence. And then, like it shows on the left side, fences, people have had their fences protrude into that alleyway. And so it has not been its true width and has not been used for many years.
Did the city council hear the other alley vacation and decide to hold
Not
it
yet.
until this one was in?
No.
Did
So
you guys decide to hold it?
In working with city council staff, they've held it back.
Decided.
Yeah.
I don't like it, and I'd prefer to make a motion against it, but that may not. If somebody thinks more people are on the other side, you can make a motion for it.
Well, we know how much I love alleys. I feel like alleys that are on paper, I feel more amenable at vacating because they really don't exist on the ground. And I remember this one, and the applicant on the end of the street was using it as his driveway, but that particular right of way was constricted in width, narrower than this part of the alley. And I think, though, just having somebody at some point in time put up a fence, obviously illegally, and then looking at that and saying, well, nobody's used it, so we might as well vacate it, isn't the way I feel like is a good standard to uphold. And for me, alleyways, because I use mine, I see that when we vacate alleys that just haven't been used, it takes away future property owners' options. So when I tore down my quintessential sugar house leaning one-car garage and built a new one, I was able to turn around and face the alley. If I hadn't, the majority of my backyard would be concrete. I wouldn't have had that option if the alley behind my house had been vacated. Additionally, I think one of the comments we continually hear when we talk about ADUs is people are concerned that there's not enough parking on the street, and so they don't want to do it. If we have alleyways, we can then work with those projects to get off-street parking via the alley, and then we can kind of mitigate that complaint that we hear from neighbors when it comes to ADUs. So I think alleyways have a really important function to how the city, looks at maybe how we redevelop and encourage multiple housing units on some of our residential lots. And then also I think future property owners then get hemmed in when they've now don't have an alley because somebody built a fence 30 years ago and now they're like want to vacate it. So I'm not in favor of alley vacations unless it's like extremely extenuating circumstances, like on that edge where that particular width was so constricted that it wasn't really a functioning alley at that point, or if they're on paper. But I think this one can be activated, and I'm certainly glad I was able to have that option back in 2007 when I rebuilt my garage. So I'm not in favor of this one either.
I guess I'm unclear on why the property owner wants to vacate. Can you just explain your motivation for why you want to see this vacated?
Yeah, first of all, that fence that she showed this blocking is no longer there. He stuck it out there and I had him take it down because people were using it, homeless people and vagrants were using it to dump over the yard. So there was the narrower one that you guys approved to vacate, and this is that next section. What's interesting about this alley is that the section that we're asking to be vacated is not paved and has never been paved. There actually is a grade difference between the neighbor's yard and so the alley kind of drops off. So it's not a usable alley anyway, probably because of that width difference. And as an example, once upon a time, in particular, someone dumped about 3 truckloads of trash, called the city, and I said, well, what's up? Called me, said, yeah, we went and looked at it, we can't get it. Sorry. So I had to go back there and took 3 truckloads of trash to the cell. I've stepped on needles back there. I've had to, on multiple occasions, because of the situation, had to ask people to get out, and they've said to me, it's a public space. Okay, so public space to point. So this area of the alley goes back far enough and drops down a little bit, overgrown because there's no pavement, so people use it to hide. Where we're asking to end the alley today is actually very visible. So we're just asking to close an additional portion that doesn't really have use, in my opinion, in the way that we're talking here. And I appreciate your that's other neighbors surrounding. Set up.
I just think it's really difficult to deny this application when we have only to find one factor that we're looking at that complies. And we have, let's see, I should count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 factors that comply. And the 2 that don't is that the city has a preference for disposing of an entire alley rather than a portion, which to me is just preference. And there are good countervailing reasons here to have this approved. And the second one is that the engineering staff generally opposes partial alley vacations. Take the alley on a vacation. And that says to me that that's just their general stance. And so I think just saying that those 2 do not comply and that can justify denial of this is really unrealistic. I think there are countervailing issues here at play that certainly outweigh a preference and will outweigh just a standing opposition to partial vacations of alleyways. So I am in favor of this. I don't think we can reasonably deny it.
I also would argue with lack of use being a finding of lack of use, because I went there and it seems like you could use the alley, pedestrians could use it, bicycles, even if there was a grade change, if there weren't fences and if there weren't trucks parked on it. You know what I mean? Like there's not a house parked. There's not a house in the middle of the alley. There are fences and vehicles parked there. So I completely understand and sympathize with the problem that you have. I don't think that this alley vacation, I think that the solution to it is opening the entire alley, like enforcing the public's right to walk through there, not to camp there, not to drop garbage there, but like enforcing the public's ability to drive there. If it was open, if those cars weren't parked there, if the fences weren't there, then I think somebody could drive. You could get to your driveway. The people that are using this other part of the alley for their driveway, they could use this part. Like the reason why it's not the lack of use is just because trucks and fences are parked there. And that seems like maybe not a permanent lack of use. So I would maybe argue that that it doesn't meet that factor, which means if it doesn't meet A, then you don't have to reconsider the other A, B, C, or D. Then you don't have to consider all these other 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what I think.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'm going to do it, and
Can I just clarify one thing before
Yeah.
you do, just so you understand? So I've got the picture on the left. That the width of the first application of the right of way is only 7.3 feet, and I think Commissioner Barry had talked about this in the first one and just now. That there's no way a car is going to go through. Yes, it could open it up for pedestrians and bikers, but a car is not going to go through. You can see the size of the truck. And just as a reminder, the Planning Commission did send a 10-to-1 recommendation of a favorable recommendation to the City Council. So you're taking a second part that isn't going to help if the first one is upheld and approved. It's going to be very difficult to open that up to a vehicle.
I think is a vehicle required, or is it just
No, it could. I mean, it
vehicle's
could
not
be
a
a
requirement.
pedestrian,
or
biker
bikes are
alleyway,
also
but that's a lot of. I think a lot of the concern or a lot of the talk has been vehicular, which isn't going to happen on that width.
because that green dotted line is the line between their property and then
Correct,
what
to
the alley
fence.
is.
Right.
Elm Street and Wilmington are very close together at that point. Elm Street and Wilmington are very close together at that point. So while another public thoroughfare isn't a bad idea, sure, I get that. But people are going to use the improved streets and sidewalks on Elm as well as Wilmington, I think, prior to walking down a dark alley, especially one that's not improved. And so that's kind of part of it too, I think, is just, it's pretty narrow. It's not like a typical width you see streets on it.
Right. Well, I understand the problems that you have right now because of the condition of the alley and the use of the alley so far. But my feeling is that I don't know that we're required to vacate this alley because I don't think that it meets the lack of use factor. And I understand that makes maybe that's super weird for us to tell the city council we approve this one 10-to-1, but like we're about to, I don't know if we're going to, I don't know how everyone wants to vote, but if we send this one saying we like it too, 6-to-1, I mean, I'll be the one on the other side that says, yeah, I agree with the idea of keeping the alleys open in order to have more options. If the alley is only 7 feet wide at that point, is that because the fence then on the right side is in the wrong place? I mean, if this is a matter of fences and cars parked in places, then they just need to move their fences.
It's not. So
cars.
the way it works is where the
Oh,
red,
it was platted. It was like two different things. that came
Exactly.
together. That's
So
right. That was a weird deal.
The orange line goes with the subdivision to the south. Whoa. The reason why the width is much bigger for the yellow strip is because it was dedicated to the city, and the city owns all 17.3 feet. So it's different.
Well, I'm going to try my motion and
Commission.
One more
Yeah.
question.
Sorry, before a motion's made, I just wanted to point out that the motion sheet that was uploaded appears to be for an administrative item, and this item's legislative. So any decision would be a recommendation,
right.
not making a decision to deny or approve.
Could I just make a comment before we go to motion?
Sure.
I guess, this neighborhood has seen, at least visibly, I don't know the stats, but my sense in the last 2 years is a significant increase in crime. I've seen people shooting up in Sugar House Park. To me, the uncertain, maybe this will be useful in the future versus property owners' rights to sort of have a safe environment where they are not exposed to this. And I guess my sense is any space that is not able to be defended by somebody, and I don't think our police officers have the resources right now to go into every alley in the city and defend that, it always becomes a hotbed of crime. Any space that just isn't defended. So I guess from a crime stand, I'm surprised the police did not comment on this item. But to me, like, I really feel for property owners that are facing these sorts of issues, because I find it, I realize I'm probably not at risk, but I do find it like concerning when I see people using drugs openly, and I find it like, to me, I feel threatened by my safety. So if somebody was doing this behind my property, I feel like we owe it to property owners to allow whatever we can do to make it safe right now, as opposed to maybe we'll need this alley in the future.
Thank you.
Just have one comment to that as a discussion point. So I have found since I now do use my alley daily, well, most days when I leave, that the more active my alley has gotten, those issues have actually completely, gone really down. This last winter, I found a needle, and I hadn't seen one since I really built my garage in that way. So it's like a double-edged sword, and I feel like alley vacations present this thing where I think reasonable people can take different views, and we're all looking at, we all have those same thoughts. We all agree we want a safe environment, et cetera, et cetera. And there can be reasonable ways to look at it in which we come at it differently. But my personal experiences in using my alley and seeing it become more activated as a couple other neighbors have also then started to use it as their garage entrance. It has made a world of difference in terms of that nefarious use. People still camp. I see it. I get garbage that is left, and I get my shovel and clean it up. But it has drastically diminished. So there's like two ways to look at everything. And this is a hard one. And I don't know where people stand, but I just wanted to make that comment that I totally also empathize, and I live in the same area, so I get all of that. But I think we can come at this in very different ways in a reasonable way. So. Yeah, go
Questions?
ahead.
Okay.
Yes, I am someone who also likes alleys. I wish there were more mid-block walkways and ways for people to get through the city. The overwhelming factor that I see on this is that there is not a desire by either the residents of the neighborhood or the city to invest in this, to make it a place where there would be enough through traffic to dispel the crime that's going on. And so that makes me lean towards supporting the alley vacation.
Thank you.
May I ask? I have another question that I was going to ask Councilor Pasker. Do you know, is there a legal theory under which property dedicated to the public, if it has been encroached on, possibly creating prescriptive rights for folks who are encroaching? Do you know, is there a theory by which that's just abandoned?
No, there is no adverse possession available to any property owner against the government.
Okay, that's what I figured. I also just want to comment as to this ABCD piece. The staff report comments specifically on lack of use, but I think as we've been discussing, there's also public safety issues, which would be the continuation of the alley, to me, does not serve as a positive urban design element where we see that there's already crime and it's a collector for things that make it difficult to be an adjacent landowner. And so I think, and community purpose even, this is not a proposal just to block the general public from driving behind their homes. This is a proposal to actually hopefully help protect the general public. So in my mind, we could say that it meets all 4 of these factors. And then when we get down to the bottom, we still have overwhelming compliance with, I think, non-compliance that is easily not dismissed, but overcome by the interest in closing this alley.
Can I ask the attorneys,
still-
do you have to meet A, B, C, or D before you can consider these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? That's what it looks like to me. Like the petition has to include A, B, C, or D. And then once you get that petition with one of those outlined, then you consider these other factors. But neither a legislator or an attorney am I. Neither.
It states just above that on page, what is it? 11, just under attachment C, analysis of standards, that at least one of the following policy considerations needs to
And
be
so
met.
my comment was saying,
You
this
think it's
basically
ABC.
meets all of them.
Right. Well, my feeling is the reason why it's a public safety issue is because it's not being treated as an alleyway right now. It's because this guy is using it for a driveway, so it's a dead end. That's what I'm saying, why there's a public safety. It's not the existence of there being an alley there that makes a public safety hazard. It's the fact that the alley is not being respected right now. The fact that it has a dead end. The fact that, you walk past this guy's parked car and then you're in like no man's land. You're in like, sorry, no one can say I can't camp here. Or I think if it was respected as an alley, it doesn't have an urban, I don't think that it has like, there's nothing inherently wrong with this alley. What's wrong with the alley is that someone's been parking on it for 30 years and someone else put up a fence. So now it just seems like free for all, like camp there if you want to.
You've repeated that.
Cut me off?
You've,
Okay.
you've repeated that
I've been cut
argument
off.
several times. Thank you.
I just really
Can I
want
get
you
a
here.
Can I get a motion on this?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Based on the information presented and discussed, I move that the commission forward a positive approval to the city council for this application.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Gale and a second by Commissioner Christensen. Commissioner Christensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrows,
No.
Commissioner Gent,
Yes.
Commissioner Barry,
No.
Commissioner Tuttle,
Yes.
Commissioner Gale,
Yes.
and the chair will also vote yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses and 2 noes. Will forward a positive recommendation. Thank you. Any other items that need to be discussed at this meeting? Seeing none, I will close this meeting, adjourn this meeting of the Planning Commission. Thank you.